I organised this bus trip today. It's through the Moor Catchment Council as part of the Northern Agricultural Catchment Council's milestones. What I wanted to do is bring the people from the South Northern Ag region, which is Gilderton, Seabird and Ledge Point, and bring them to Greenhead and Cervantes to look at coastal rehabilitation works, and also to meet the active members of the coast care groups in those towns. And hopefully next year what we want to do is an exchange and bring people from Greenhead and Cervantes and Jurien and take them down to Gilderton and Ledge and maybe Seabird if they do any works there.
I was sort of walking along here one day and noticed this huge blowout and how people were walking through it, motorbiking through it, doing all sorts of things that were making it just bigger and bigger. So I thought it might be a really good project for the group to start on. So we sort of talked to the group, and we talked to the NACC coastal people and how it was going to be the best way to do it. We got input from the DEC people, and we were very lucky. We had DEC and the local ranger from the Dandaragan Shire and the local group. We all came out last year and we had a planting day. The big problem was over there on the other side, as you can see, where the wind, being a southerly in summer, blows in and is eroding that side. We weren't quite sure what to do on that side, so you can see the fences that are falling down. It was just an experiment to see if they would trap the sand that was blowing in over summer, and as you can see, it hasn't actually worked very well. We also planted along the pathway, but a lot of that hasn't survived, although there are a few plants down there.
I'd say we've got about 40–50% success rate, Penny, do you reckon, in the plants that were planted? Yeah. So probably about 40 to 50% success, which I think is not bad. This used to be bare only 12 months ago, and once we keep doing some infill planting here, I think it'll, it's a work in progress. A site like this is quite big, and the idea of trying to address it now is so that it doesn't get any bigger and the problem doesn't become bigger for us to manage, because it could potentially become quite a large blowout. You see bigger blowouts all up and down our coast.
So it's something that you have to think about when you do a project, is to always come back and check that it's okay, come back and fix it up, maintain it, don't just plant it and then walk away. I think that's a really important thing to follow up with, make sure the signs are still there, make sure that things, the rubbish isn't getting around, and just to educate people so they know what's going on, and then they might respect it a bit more, they might value it if they understand what's actually happening in this area.
Can I add one more?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Just you might notice this matting here. I don't know if everyone's seen that. That's a jute netting, and it's used to stabilise the sand around the new seedlings, around the roots of the seedlings, and you'll be able to see some areas where there's the netting hasn't been used, and other areas where the netting has been used. And we find that it's something that we've only been trialling, really, in my experience, for the last couple of years, but we find that it's a really effective way of stabilising the sand around the new seedlings, and it's all biodegradable, and the pegs that are used to put it down are also biodegradable as well. So over time, hopefully the vegetation and the roots will take over and play the role that the matting's playing at the moment. So.
I think there's sort of a generic issue for all of us along the coast with blowouts, particularly when they're human-induced blowouts. And our Coast Care group, we've got 4.5 k's of coastline in a Perth, so you can imagine the issues there. And working with the local authority, the town of Cambridge, we've formalised tracks. So what we've done is we've seen where people are going to go, and we're saying, well, we're not going to stop that flow, let's formalise it and rehabilitate it. And it's been really interesting. That's worked really well, and we're now almost at the stage where we want to start removing the side fences, because we want people to walk into the dunes, along the formal paths, and feel like they're immersed a bit in nature rather than feeling like they're corralled.
Our main project is along the headlands here from Greenhead to the south up to Anchorage Bay to the north, which covers about 2 kilometres of headlands along here. In order to protect the headlands from random human access, which has been the situation in the past, which, as you guys will know, being involved in Coast Care, leads inevitably to damage to the natural flora and creates blowouts. This is such an exposed headland, and of course we get the traditional Western Australian winds, and so sand blowouts can be a serious problem. So we're formalising a walk trail along the headlands, and Dynamite Bay here is in the centre of it. We've been working on this now for about 8 years, and we're reaching the point where this year we are going to actually start to build some structure. So we are putting in a pathway, which will be a cement pathway, a coloured cement, something that fits into the environment. Down one steep section, a boardwalk, and building a lookout on the point itself. These have all been designed to fit into the environment. Halfway along that section there is a midden site. It's a site of importance to the local Aboriginal people, the Ewards. We've worked together with them carefully to make sure that we do our work around that in a sensitive and acceptable way.
This area here was really very, very eroded. Basically undercut all through here. We weren't really quite sure what we were going to do here, because we thought maybe one day there would be a lookout up here, which there will be within the next probably 3 months, which is great. But anyway, we started, and what we did was bought quite a lot of sand and rocks. We filled all this whole area up around here with very big rocks, and then we filled that up again with sand. And then we did some matting. We thought, well, we'll go with the matting, which has been pretty good. It's held the soil back. As you can see, there's a track going through further north over here. Hopefully one day we get the funding for a beautiful boardwalk along there, and then to another lookout over the other side, because Greenhead has lots of bays and it's beautiful.
Most shires are under considerable pressure to remove this material. I'll just talk a bit about some reasons why wholesale removal of that material is perhaps not a very good idea. One is that in terms of these confined limestone reef lagoons that we have all the way along our coastline, about 70% of the nitrogen in the marine ecosystem is returned to the system through the seaweed rack. In other words, it's the fundamental source and sink of the nutrients that are cycling in the system. If you remove those nutrients from the marine environment and put them into the terrestrial one, you're actually running down your coastal ecosystem. The other important thing about seaweed rack is that the seagrass component of it, and particularly the wireweed component, the amphibolus, in those fibrous balls that you see on the beach, and also the big mounds of seagrass that you get at certain times of year, very important protective agents for your coastal dunes during storm events and high sea level events like the ones we've been having for the last 2 years. I think if we hadn't had our amphibolus barrier at Lancelin over the last 2 years, we would have lost a significant amount of our dunes, because basically with the high sea levels we were seeing erosion that normally you see in winter actually happening in summer. I don't know if you've noticed that in various places along the coast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'll just say a couple of words from the Yuid people, which is Kaya Kaya Yuid Butcher. Let's welcome you to the country here. The other one's about the mittens that you had a look at just recently. That's all seasonal food for the Yuid people in the early days. And they used to travel inland to come to the coast to pick their food. But they had something to tell them when to come out here and when the signs are right. And one of the signs was the mudjar tree, that's the Christmas tree. When that flowers, it tells them they can come out the coast and get their food. And it also helped with the crayfish, white crayfish when they start walking. So they had all these signs which they can work by. And on their way through, they had all this course of water holes where they can travel and walk through. And up where we are at Wedge Island, we've got water holes that come out the water, out the sea. So there's always been a lot of water. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Okay. Mount Mazura is a mythical place where the rainbow serpent, the Wagati, cut through there. And the old people will still tell you today they can see the scales on some of that rock formation. And as it breaks through there, it came through the flat country, and there's caves that go through all the way through towards the beach. And that's the breathing holes that forms some of the land. And that's some of our old stories we talk of, yeah.
And where we're standing here, it's important to remind ourselves that we're actually on one of the most high energy coastlines. We're on a west coast, we get prevailing winds coming straight in, and as a result these coastal communities recede, they build back out, they move all over the place. So it's a very dynamic place, and that dynamism can be seen in these blowouts that you see, these transgressional dunes, these big white ones. We've actually got images of that dune, there's a big one over the back from 1948, and we've actually been tracking that and the way it's now running out of steam. That is, the nourishment of sand coming in has been blocked off by vegetation on the beachfront, and it's gradually just running out of sand. You can see it's becoming a future Grigson's Lookout stuck over there. And so the processes of dynamism of both sea level changes, the building of rocks at depth, the exposure of those, and then these sort of transgressional dunes. Now, because of that, these systems are what we call young systems. So we're standing on a dunal complex that is probably at maximum probably the 20,000 year mark, probably much younger than that. So they're quite young. But if we go over onto those hills, we're actually dealing with very ancient sediments that then clock up to hundreds of millions of years that they've been sitting. So that is really the actual coastline of Australia, and this is all borrowed material that we're sitting on here, but this is the stuff we love to live on. So over on those hills, we've got in Mount Mazura National Park, I think about 850 species sitting in there. That's a little over half the whole of the flora of the British Isles, just sitting in that system. Whereas for the whole coast, from about Lancelin, from Shark Bay down to Perth, we get about 1,200 species sit in that coastal strip. And there's very few species that are unique to that system. So we think that's a direct result of these young, very volatile, very energetic systems driving those plants. But I think that's a really sad part of where we've taken our culture. We're now so protective and so safe that people actually fear this stuff, that our indigenous brothers and sisters in this country, of course, lived with for 40,000 years and survived very well. but it's an issue, I think, that these lookouts and those things, if we can get people and drag them into bushland and make them feel comfortable, is taking the next step. And it's extraordinary that Rio Tinto has invested, along with some other partners, $11 million in our what we're calling Naturescape at Kings Park, which is about connecting kids in a safe play environment back with the bush. And I know a number of you, as I did, had the great privilege of playing in bushland, and you just grow to love it. Modern kids these days look at a piece of bush and are told it's dangerous, stranger danger, you name it, it's all of those things. So lookouts, I think they all play their role as long as they're done with sensitivity, and we get messages that you can connect with the bushland and maybe take the next step and join a group and start your own bit of restoration.